There are two very interesting projects. Hanmin is going to talk a little bit about the work that he does through the Wildflowers Institute based in San Francisco. And then Janet is going to talk about sort of one of the most radically disruptive projects that I've ever seen driven by city government, both of which are really around getting to know a group of people who are living and working in a place as a first step, as a necessary precondition to begin doing some community planning and development. So with that, I'm going to invite up Hon Min Liu, who is the executive director of the Wildflowers Institute, president of the Wildflowers Institute, whatever it is, and has the single best email address of anyone I've ever met, so make sure you get his business card. All right, so with that, please welcome Hon Min Liu.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here today. I wanted to talk a bit about the work that we're doing at Wildflowers Institute and understanding how communities really work. And at Wildflowers, we've been involved in some 19 communities in 3 different countries over the last 30 years. And we go very deep into the communities. It isn't just once or twice. In China, we've been in China for over 2 decades, been there hundreds of times, have been in Shanghai, Beijing, and Chengdu. You know, I can't even remember how many times, visiting and learning about communities. And then we've also been in Mexico, and of course, we've been involved in different communities in the United States. And one of the real challenges we've had in terms of understanding communities is this relationship between inside and outside. You know, because we are an outsider, and we're going inside the community. So how best can we enter into a community and begin to wear the lens that the community has in order for us to begin to understand the community and its own power? Because in that process, that it for us helps us define how the community works. If we can see the functions of the community and see how it's actually operating, then we can say this then becomes a community. It's not defined just by neighborhoods or blocks and streets. In fact, it's defined by relationships. And so this methodology that I'm going to show to you today is an effort towards us moving in this direction of understanding the community from its own lens, from its own point of view. From this work, then, we begin to build maps of the community. So just a word about Wildflowers, and then I'll get right into this methodology. One of the challenges that we had, in addition to the 19 communities like the Ethiopian or the Chinese or the Japanese community or the Lao-Yumian community, the Mayan community or the Ethiopian communities, in addition to the language problems we had, there were cultural problems, there were cultural differences in which we had to begin to understand in order to appreciate where the power came from in the communities. And so we needed a methodology that would actually help us reveal the way in which the community actually expresses itself. And so it's been a process of 30 years. It's been an iterative process of 30 years. I mean, we tried it 30 years ago, and I'm really glad to say we're 30 years better today than we were 30 years in the beginning, because, I mean, we weren't sure what we were doing then. I think we know what we're doing now, but it's been a long process of trying a methodology of getting to the voices of the community themselves. So what I'm going to show to you today is an approach that we've taken to understand 3 basic questions. What really is going on in the community? Who holds the influence? And what kind of influence does the community, do these individuals and groups have? And what is the community's priorities? Not our priorities, but what's the community's priorities? And how do we begin to understand the ways in which they are organizing themselves to be able to meet their priorities on their own? This is a This is a young man. It's a photograph of a young man. His name is Curtis Mays. I'm going to show a short video of Curtis talking about his community, which is South Central LA, Baldwin Village. Anyone know about Baldwin Village? Okay, they call it the jungle, right? And this Curtis Mays, his nickname is Bird, and so you'll hear him introduce himself as Bird, and you'll hear his story about his community. As you listen to his story, listen to the way in which the objects in which he uses to tell a story, and the way in which he expresses these objects. And what we do in our work is to we will invite Curtis to build a model of his community, having a variety of different figurines. And I'm just going to quickly flip through a series of slides which shows the figurines in which Curtis has the choices of selecting. And here's yet another. And then, of course, we have some of our superheroes, and then yet other images, and then we have a variety of different animals and we also have some sea objects or sea animals, and then we have blocks and figurines, and together we invite individuals and groups to begin to build models of their community, telling their story of telling their own story and their life in their community. And so in this next image here, you see a portion of birds, and you'll hear the whole the video in a minute. But this is a portion of his table where you see his fingers pointing is where the bird is, and that actually is Bird. I mean, that is a representation of Bird. And the figurines in which people are using the blocks is a part of his narrative of what it means to live in the jungle. So let's hear Bird's narrative of the people and places in his community.
It's Curtis Mays, also known as Bird. This is right here. This is my interpretation of the jungle. This is what I go through every day. All right, this is me right here. This is how I start my day off right here. All right, this right here.
And we're just checking to see if we can get that volume louder for you. Give us 1 second.
We're going to go back one. And I'll explain a little bit further, but this after this one video. But this is there were 5 other members of his community who we also invited to build this model, build their own model, and they've all told their own stories. And we do this in both young, with young people, with elders, with service providers, with a variety of different people in the community, so that we actually get a really rich texture. And then we also see some of the patterns or some of the commonalities that exist between and among all the people that have participated in the model building process. Okay, so here goes.
Curtis Mays. Also,
sorry.
It's Curtis Mays, also known as Bird. This is right here. This is my interpretation of the jungle. This is what I go through every day. All right, this is me right here. This is how I start my day off right here. All right, this right here is the homies. This is the homies right here. And this right here is our so-called enemy. These will be the Bloods, and these will be the Crips right here. But see, what we don't see in the middle is greed, envy, jealousy. Right here in the middle, as you can see, he's smiling. As you can see, he's smiling. because he knows that the outcome of this war is nothing but this right here. All right. So as I keep going on with my day, I walk past the school and I see a teacher, a professor, if you will. He's teaching the kids. But see, what they don't see is secretly he's teaching the kids the art of war. Right here. Okay. I keep belling on with my day. Right here. This is Superman. This is the big time dope dealer right here. As you can see, all the kids in the jungles, they got their eye on him. Because he got the big rocks. He got the cores. He even got the trees in front of his house. But see, what they don't see is my man right here, supposedly a dope head, he's the undercover cop. He's about to end off all his little grind. And the kids ain't gonna have nothing to look up to no more. Because he gonna be behind bars, so he's out of the picture. Okay, and this right here is your common 18th Streeter right here. He in the cut. Nobody don't see him. He's lurking. He done already killed 2 of the homies. But the doctors and the policemen, they don't see nothing. Their backs is turned. They don't see none of this. Because they came too late. This right here, this is, what? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right, as you can see, the jungles is not all good, but it's good enough for us, you know, to live. He wants to tear everything down because he don't see nothing but dollar signs. But see, what he does, he fails to understand is this is where we have to live. But he don't care because all he sees is dollar signs. So he gonna tear all this down, and we left with nothing. Nothing. We ain't got nothing. No more nothing. Just because we failed to understand what this man right here is trying to do. We so involved in everything else. Oh, cars. Oh, I got big rocks. I'm gonna sell rocks. Oh, I got this. I got that. But we not realizing the big picture. They moving in on us, and it's gonna happen eventually. Eventually, everything is gonna come to a halt. This is the park right here. This is a basketball player. He's an aspiring basketball player. Skills. Best person in the hood. But what he don't see is his friends right here. Snakes. They always gonna pull him down. He'll never make it nowhere. Never make it. Never make it out of the jungles. Never make it out of the hood. Never make it nowhere. Because he choose to listen to his friends. So he gonna stay right where he is. This right here is the daily struggle. This goes on daily. See, he thinks that, how could I say, the Caucasian man is trying to oppress him. But what he don't understand is this is the key to living. Key to living. All you do is have to talk to this man right here. It's right in front of your face. But instead, he wants to be hard and be a warrior and kill this man off. While this man is knocking down the jungles. He's focused on him. He's focused on this man, and this man. Not even on this man. On these 2 men right here. But this man is moving in. It's pretty much, that's my interpretation of the jungle. This is what I go through every day.
Yes, baby.
Sure, you're right.
Politics and everything.
I go through every day. It's an ongoing struggle.
Yes.
Kids, they don't know nothing because they act upon what they see every day. So if they see somebody dealing drugs every day, it's already in their mind before they even hit 15 that, oh, I'm about to be a dope dealer so I can get this. This is all I want right here. That's all I want. All I want is this, you know, and smoke a little bit of this. Instead of going to this and becoming this. Any questions?
Broke it down.
Okay. Okay, so that's Bird and his story. Bird is Blackstone Ranger. He's one of the young men in the jungle who stay up most of the night to care for the elders and make sure that it's safe in the jungle. He helped us begin to see from his point of view. And of course, there are many different points of views other than Bird's, which we also need to garner. But why I wanted to share this with you today is we thought it's a great example of this symbolic language that we're trying to, that our process provides. It's rather than just using our spoken word, whether it's English or another language. What we see in context is a variety, are both the people and the structures in which life gets played out in the community. And it's the people and structures that we oftentimes miss when we're just having, our one-on-one conversations or our conversations in groups. What we found this process to be is enormously revealing. I mean, I could just go on and on and on and talk about many, many different communities in which we have been working in, but the process illuminates, and I hope that this may kind of trigger in your own minds ways of thinking about how to bridge this inside and this outside point of view by being able to communicate in ways beyond just the conversations. The other piece that we learned from this, in which we're working on, is that Bird, in his model, as really rather challenging story that he shared, is that he does offer hope. It's the elders, right? I mean, you look at the model now, there are three things that stand. It's the elder basketball player, and I asked Bird afterwards, who's the basketball player? He says he loves basketball, right? And basketball is a place that not only one aspires for and continues to improve at, it's a team sport, and the coaching that goes on and the relationships between those young people and those who are helping the young people play basketball is something that's an interesting starting point for thinking about community development, community organizing. So the process of model building, what we do is we will survey the community and identify the different groups in the community, both formal and informal. Particularly the informal, which is the most invisible, but the most important from our point of view, because it's the informal that provides us much of what I heard Jamie talk about in terms of the social and cultural cohesion. Comes about through the informal leaders and the informal life that happens in the community. So we identify these groups, and then we invite them to do model building. Each of the groups are roughly 6 to 8 people, and we ask them to build individual models first. We highlight similarities and differences between the different cultures, and then we develop some group insights into what is common. We ask the groups to then build one model to tell their story. And that helps us begin to, and again, it's a process of having the community reconciling their differences, right, rather than us reconciling differences. Because in the making of the map, if we can make it as clear as we can that from the community's point of view, it actually empowers them more than us making the map, making interpretations of what we think is a community. And lastly, we reflect on the experiences and begin to think about strategy. Because it's really strategy that's built upon the realities of the community that help us think about community development, community building, and community development. So lastly, I'll just say some of the benefits that we found from model building, that it helps us give a topography of formal and informal structures. It narrates the insider's understanding of the community. It illuminates the culture, addresses the existential question of identity of the neighborhood, and lastly, it's an intuitive process. We've not had or saying it another way, we've done thousands, probably tens of thousands of model building sessions over the last 30 years. And there's not been one person or one group that has actually not found this to be a user-friendly, easy process for them to tell their story. That's it for me. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the opportunity to share with you.
And if you have time at the end, we'd love to talk. Can you just sit and I'll join you on stage in a second? Excellent. All right, Janet, come on up. So we're going to move to Austin, Texas. So please join me in welcoming Janet Seibert. I'll sit next to you in 1 second. I just want to get you started.
Hanmin.
Up on the screen.
There it is. Good morning. How are you all doing today? First of all, I want to thank Jamie and Prentice and Liz and Javier and the whole team at ArtPlace. It's been a real pleasure to work with them, and especially Prentice. He's been one of those people that continually, come on, Janet, do this, do this. No, no, no. But he insists, and so I continued doing it. I did a presentation in Seattle at Citizen University with Hanmin. And so there's some real interesting crossovers that I think you'll find. But first of all, I also want to thank, I have 3 partners in the audience. In Austin, Texas has never gotten an ArtPlace grant, and I have been a part of 2 or 3 of them, I know, proposals. But all of a sudden, last year, we got not just 1 ArtPlace grant, we've gotten 2 ArtPlace grants. And you'll see as I talk about it, you'll see the connection between the 2, and you'll understand maybe why we did get 2. But first of all, I want to thank Lynn Osgood and Sarah Gamble. They're partners with some other people with actually Generous Art and Public City on drawing lines. And then Brad Carlin is in the room also. He's a partner with 5 other people, Fusebox Festival. He represents Fusebox Festival. And we also have 2 developers. We have an entrepreneur, just a cracker box entrepreneur, and that project is Think East Living Charette. But let me get into this. Isn't that a gorgeous picture of Austin? Doesn't that make you just want to go there and live there and be there? Well, I'm going to talk about Austin, but I want to give you a chance to hear what my story is a little bit. I worked with Hanmin and I did a model. And it was very interesting for me. I reflected on the last 17 years that I have worked for the city of Austin. So you must understand that I am the insider. Hanmin was the outsider. I am the insider. And so this is my world. On the right is the system, and that's represented by city council, city management. Those are the sorts of system, and you know that system, what it feels to work in it. On the left-hand side is the world that I'm coming from. And so you'll see some of my workers, but I'm actually represented by that totem pole, because what I have learned over 17 years is that you really have to have a bag of tools that you approach the world. And you have a lot of community members that help you. There's a lot of tools that you have translating language from one sector to another. There's animals in there. There's there's a lot of indigenous people. They were representing the community. And there's also a spring there. And that is that kind of forever, how a city, as a city unfolds, it does so organically. Yes, there's things that impact it, but it still does it organically. So I'm going to give you a real quick feel. I am in the Economic Development Department. We have 5 divisions. I'll show show them to you real quickly. But I want you to know that I am revealing myself today. I've been doing this publicly lately. I really consider myself an artist in resident as a city employee. And so I have kept that kind of quiet, but near the end of my tenure, if you will, I've become to be a little bolder. But economic development, you know what it is. It kind of helps set the scene for that job creation and that wealth creation. There are 5 divisions. I'm not going to go into this in any great detail, just to touch on them. Economic development. Now, the economic impact of the arts in Austin are huge. We are a $4.35 billion industry. And yes, that has a lot to do with the music, with the festivals, with that kind of activity going on. But nevertheless, it is a $4.35 billion industry. Our biggest pot of funds that we use to seed these activities actually is the hotel occupancy tax. So let me say that for the last 20 years or more, no, much more than that now, 30 or 40 years, we have been incentivizing tourism. So that's one reason why you know so well about Austin and the story about Austin. Meant to bring up my water. Now, one of the things that I do is that I try to make sure that people understand that community benefits are important. So when we go too far to economic development, I say, whoa, let's not do that. Let's make sure that we understand the value of the arts, because we can talk about the music scene and what music brings, but it is those arts organizations that are in the trenches working with community that are really bringing much more to the table than just those jobs and that wealth and prosperity, right? And we in the room know this. And so that's one of the jobs that I try to do. And when I talk about it, and you'll see at the end of this presentation, my title is Civic Arts Program Consultant. Civic arts, so that there is a responsibility, but there's also rights that come with that. And so it's very important. I'm constantly, while Bird is thinking about his jungle, I'm constantly thinking about my larger community. And so here's some of the maps that we use for that economic development. We have the Create Austin Cultural Master Plan. We have our Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. We actually have 8 priority programs that implement that Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan, and I lead the Creative Economy Priority Program. So there are things that we are actively doing that are economic development strategies. Also, we're going through a Land Development Code revision. Incredible. You know, a city doesn't do that, but maybe once every 25 years. And then because of Imagine Austin, our 3,000 person organization is really bringing city programs to align behind Imagine Austin. So we actually have a capital improvement program that is, we're doing strategic planning around capital improvements. And so here's that beautiful city again. Here's that beginning of Austin. But while we are really have our face forward and people are coming, something like 108 people a day are moving to Austin. We are growing by leaps and bounds. Every 20 years we get another 1 million people. We are now the 11th largest city in the world, and we're quickly coming across San Jose. So this is something that is, we're really feeling a lot of growing pains. This is a big, we are an adolescent big city, if you will. We're still trying to figure out how we are a city. And so through that, all of a sudden, people are looking at Austin, people in Austin are looking at Austin a little different. This is a picture I threw in here, Violet Crown. It was called out by one of our great writers from many years ago. And if you're in it, you know it. You can almost slice the color. And I can see sometimes the rooms in my house turn color, and I think, whoa, what is going on? And it's the violet crown happening. It's a phenomenon that happens. And I've been in Austin for about 25 years, and we used to talk about the violet crown a lot. And I find now it's not talked about very much. So we're beginning to lose some things. We're beginning to lose some of our cultures. So we're very much a strong Hispanic culture. But remember, music is king in Austin. And so even Hispanic groups during South by Southwest, they're having a difficult time getting some visibility because music, that singer-songwriter, is what people are coming to town for. But they still do, they had a couple of years ago, they had a Latino music scene happening over a weekend, and people really enjoyed them. And it was quite, I think it was brought out in a few national magazines that how wonderful that music was. We're losing our African American population. Now, part of that is because we no longer have segregation, and so people can live anywhere. But children of people who live in Austin no longer want to be in Austin. They can buy a bigger house, more yard, better schools if they are outside of Austin. We had our unemployment rate dropped drastically, and our city demographer was really excited, and he was going to call the mayor, and he thought, wait a minute, I think I better take a look at this a little closer. And what he discovered is that it's that people of lower income are leaving. We actually have creatives that are leaving. It is getting less and less affordable to live in Austin. So we have some really growth problems that we're coming across and that we're trying to deal with. And then, so the Hispanics and the African Americans and the Republican came together and said, you know what, we're not getting our fair share of the city money. It seems like everything is going to the downtown. You saw how beautiful that picture was. Well, in 2013, the city voted, the citizens voted, and we are in the middle of a transformation from city government that is elected at large to city government that is elected by geographic region. And so now things are really shifting. Now there is a shift from the downtown to the neighborhoods. Now we're hearing, okay, what have you been doing in District 1? What have you been doing in District 4? All of a sudden these many maps are being made so that we can show that things are happening in all the districts. We had an art and public places map to demonstrate that public art is happening across the city. So this, when I got wind that this was, something like this was going to happen, or that it was happening, I thought, oh my goodness, I can see it now. I know that when people want something done, they go to their city council members, and oftentimes it's those squeaky wheels that get the funding. So I thought, well, let's get out in front of this. And so what we are trying to do is we're trying to, first of all, map those easily found cultural institutions. So first of all, it's downtown. So you know what that is. That's the Performing Arts Center, that's sculpture that's downtown, that's theaters that are downtown. As we go outside of downtown, we'll see that there are different kinds of cultural assets. And so that is something that we're kind of standing up and noticing. And that is, so the situation that Austin is in is what we are dealing with right now. We have a city that is growing by leaps and bounds. We're losing people because of affordability issues, and so it felt like it was time that we do something. And so that's the cultural asset mapping. and I partnered up with Lynn and Sarah and her team, and this is the drawing lines. This is the idea that we are matching artists and districts to aid in the process of creating new district identities. So remember, mapping is about learning about yourself, what is important, where are we going, where do we want to go, what are we going to do, how can we handle some of this. So here's a slide that shows the districts. We now have 10 council members and 1 mayor, so 10 council members are elected by districts. And so you can see the new council members surrounding that district map, and then around those are our artists. You'll see a couple of musicians. There's a poet and writer and playwright, a culinary artist. We've got down in the lower right-hand corner is Deb Eskenazi and Carrie Kenny. Thank you. And I wanted to point these out because they are the furthest ones along. Lynn and Sarah and her team have been working with the artists to help them. How do they go into the community? So like what was said last night about you all being the Army, this is our Army for Austin. This really is the group of people that we hope are training to become those consummate community artists that know how to work in the community, know how to have those languages or be able to talk those languages of other sectors. And something really interesting is happening. I wanted to point out Deb and Carrie because they're the furthest ones along, and I wanted to show a picture that they had done in the district that they've been assigned to. We have a big Formula One racetrack. Now remember, they came into town and they wowed our city government, they wowed people, but if you see it, the racetrack from the sky, you'll see that it is a huge scar on the land. But they're bringing lots of money, right? And so what they are doing is the F1 track is in their district. They have been photographing people who are being impacted by this. And one of them was a photograph of an African-American doing his barbecue, getting ready, and actually it looked like he was selling it. And then you pan out and you can see that his property is right near one of the turns. And I was sharing the photograph with someone, and they were saying, oh man, you know, when I'm over there, you just cannot imagine how loud it is. So with all this wealth and prosperity and jobs, there's other things that come with it. And so how can art ameliorate that? So part of what we're doing, our cultural asset mapping, we actually have some funding from the NEA, but what we don't have funding for is to what we're calling ground truthing, which we're going to be taking our cultural asset maps into the community, and we're going to be saying, this is what we found, what are we missing? So we're expecting that when we do that, we're going to get things that are the third places, the gathering places. We're going to get those Halloween and 4th of July parades. We're going to get those really sweet moments of the everyday life that really are critical to having a good life. And you'll see we're going to be doing some notations. We're already tying this to some of the Land Development Code revision activity. And so this demonstrates really quickly that I can pick up a thread in any one of these things and it attaches to something else in the city. So that this is something that is happening across the city. One of the musicians for drawing lines was actually the headliner for our Think East Living charrette, so I'll talk about that. Deb is really critical in one of the most the largest success that we're currently having with our Think East project. So all these things are really woven together, and it's something that we really are marshaling the opportunity to really say this is what our city, why our city is important, and this is what we want to do about it. So I wanted to quickly I'm going to run through a lot of slides. The other ArtPlace America grant that we have is for Think East Living Charette, and you'll see that little turquoise area on the bottom right. That's actually 25 acres, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but this is a section that is 100 acres. So we can quickly go from scale of being that intimate parade in a neighborhood to 25 acres to 100 acres. So we're learning how we can scale up or scale down our community activities. So here we are, Think East. We're demonstrating and modeling the value of arts and strategies to shape our community's social, physical, and economic. So we do know that, what was I going to say, that Think East is the furthest along. We just had our big living charrette, which is one of 3 deliverables of our ArtPlace America grant. It happened over 2.5 days in April. 3.5 days, excuse me. And let me explain what the problem was that we were in part trying to solve there. It's 25 acres, and it's kind of unusual that this size acreage is available in Austin so close to downtown. It's only a few miles away from the downtown core. And what it was that it was a gasoline holding tank farm for the airport, for the Bergstrom, not International Airport, but for the base that was there, the Air Force base that was there. And so this is a installation. It's the same size as the tank farm, or one of the tanks, gasoline tanks. You can see some community members there. These are a couple of women that were really active in the early 90s to fight the tank, the pollution coming from these tanks. And what they found was that people were getting sick, children were having nosebleeds, things were happening, and they finally realized what was going on, that it was the tank farm. And so through a very long process and tedious process and not always very successful, they managed to get rid of the tank farm. And so it's been ameliorated. And this is why the developers, Richard DeVarga and Robert Summers, they bought this property, and they've gotten to be really community advocates. And one of the things that they did right away was that they ended up working with the community, going and talking with them, listening to them, so much so that people would call them and tell them about different things that were happening. For the community there, they were very touched that this was going on. They're participating. They're actually helping with the programming of the charrette. And in this case, they were doing a blessing of the property. And the smaller picture above, one of the developers had pulled his child out of school so that he could be a part of this blessing ceremony. So I'm going to pan through a lot of slides here. This is the site. Yes, real quickly. And so here's some of the kind of mapping things that we're doing. Visioning exercises. We're looking at the site and what could be built on it. We actually modeled a pop-up fashion industry. And here's something about building materials that are edible or made from edible. We had a city strike team now that is helping out so that they are on board and helping push things through when needed. Here's Susanna Monza, who is giving the history of the tank farm. And here is Danny Camacho, who knows a lot about the Hispanic history. This is part of the city strike team. We were looking at a film called La Loma. We discovered that for 50 years, kids were going across the railroad tracks just so they could walk to school. This is our big success right now. And here's another map. So they are actually, we've gotten front page coverage over what's happening with the kids in trying to walk to school, and we're having great success in making community meetings so that we can try to make a difference. In Austin, creativity matters, culture matters, place matters, people matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much.